The Greenbrier Resort in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia, exudes old-world luxury and charm. It's an opulent retreat nestled in the Allegheny Mountains, which is a place that has hosted presidents and princes since the late 18th century. Strolling through its grand lobbies and manicured gardens, you'd never suspect that beneath the gentile southern facade lurks a dark secret. But deep underground, hidden for decades, lies something straight out of a Cold War thriller. Beneath the marbled floors and the grand ballrooms is a vast concrete complex, a secret bunker built to shelter the United States Congress in case of a nuclear apocalypse. For over 30 years, guests sipped cocktails on veranda and played golf on the Greenbrier's pristine courses, blissfully unaware of what lay below. From 1958 until 1992, a massive fallout shelter remained hidden in plain sight under the resort. Imagine the contrast. Above ground, a five-star hotel with chandeliers and fine dining, and below ground, steel blast doors and endless corridors stocked for doomsday. The Washington Post later dubbed it the ultimate congressional hideaway, and rightly so. Few could imagine that lawmakers' refuge for the end of the world was tucked under a leisure resort. It sounds like a plot from a movie, but it was all too real. In fact, it was so real that you shouldn't be here, but I'm glad that you are, because I want you to picture it. Think of arriving at the Greenbrier as just a normal guest. You check into a lavish suite, wander past walls adorned with floral wallpaper, maybe even glimpse a door that appears to lead into nowhere. But little do you know that 720 feet beneath your feet lies a fortress built for the end of the world. It's a chilling thought, a place of relaxation and luxury sitting directly on top of a facility designed for survival amid nuclear war. This prologue sets the stage for a tale of hidden history and eerie intrigue. How did this unlikely bunker come to be, and how did it stay secret for so long, right under everyone's noses? The answers lie in the depth of the Cold War and in the quiet loyalty of a small town. To understand the Greenbrier bunker, we have to transport ourselves back to the late 1950s, the height of the Cold War fears. This was an era when the possibility of nuclear Armageddon loomed over daily life. In America, schools, children practiced duck and cover drills, crouching under desks as if that could shield them from an atomic blast. Families dug backyard fallout shelters and stocked them with canned goods and water, hoping to ride out a nuclear war underground. It was a time of anxiety and preparation, with the specter of the mushroom cloud never far from people's minds. If everyday citizens were preparing for the worst, you can bet the U.S. government was too. Behind closed doors, officials in Washington were drawing up secret continuity of government plans. The question that was keeping them up at night was, if the Soviets launched a surprise nuclear strike, how would the country's leaders survive? They needed a secret refuge for the federal government, a place where Congress and other top officials could regroup and keep the government running in the aftermath of the catastrophe. Various bunkers were considered and built during this time, but one particularly audacious plan was hatched for the legislative branch. The idea was bold: create a massive fallout shelter exclusively for the United States Congress, hidden somewhere safe, but within reach of Washington. But where could you possibly hide a bunker big enough for hundreds of people without drawing any kind of attention? Well, enter the Greenbrier Resort. The Greenbrier was an attractive choice for several reasons. First, it was remote. It was tucked away in the mountains of West Virginia, far from any likely Soviet targets, yet still accessible from D.C. by a few hours' drive or by a short flight. Second, the resort had a long-standing connection with Washington's elite. Senators, representatives, and even presidents had vacationed there for generations. It wasn't unusual to see powerful officials roaming the hotel's halls or playing rounds of golf on its courses. This meant that in an emergency, gathering members of Congress at the Greenbrier might not arouse any suspicion at all. It was a place where they could plausibly be without causing any kind of alarm. And third, the hotel sat on sprawling grounds with plenty of space to build a big addition that could conceal a subterranean project. In essence, it was the perfect cover, an expansion of a famous resort that secretly doubled as a doomsday hideout. In 1958, under a shroud of secrecy, Congress greenlit this plan. The project was codenamed Project Greek Island, an appropriately cryptic moniker for such a clandestine endeavor. Publicly, it was presented as a major new construction at the resort, the West Virginia Wing, a whole new wing of guest rooms and meeting spaces for the Greenbrier. Behind that facade, however, they were digging out a massive underground bunker. Construction took place between 1959 and 1962, and it was timed so that it was completed right around the Cuban Missile Crisis. It's chilling to realize that while President Kennedy was facing off over missiles in Cuba, a fortress for Congress was being finalized beneath a mountain in West Virginia. The plan was that if a nuclear war ever looked imminent, the entire Greenbrier Resort would quietly transform. Guests would be cleared out, and the site would be handed over entirely to government use. In theory, hundreds of senators and representatives would flood into this idyllic retreat, bringing along the secret of what lay beneath it to ride out the unthinkable, but in safety. Even as the concrete was being poured and steel blast doors were being installed, secrecy was paramount. White Sulphur Springs was a small town, and a construction project of this magnitude, well, it was hard to miss. Locals saw an enormous excavation being dug into the hillside and an endless parade of cement trucks rumbling through town. They noticed unusual building materials arriving. Famously, one shipment included 110 brand new urinals, far more than any hotel expansion could possibly need. They saw massive steel doors being delivered under armed guard. Obviously, something big and strange was happening at the Greenbrier. Rumors inevitably started swirling in whispered conversations. Was it a bomb shelter? Was it a vault? Was it some kind of government facility? Yet remarkably, the people of White Sulphur Springs kept the secret. It was an open secret in the town, and many had their guesses, but out of a mix of patriotism, fear, and perhaps community pride, they chose not to pry or to even speak out. Remember, this was the Cold War. National security was a communal effort, and loose lips sink ships was more than just a slogan from the previous war. One local later recalled that everyone just agreed to be in on the secret. The townsfolk understood that they were playing a role in a matter of national survival, and that revealing the truth could endanger the country, or at least their own livelihoods. After all, the Greenbrier was the town's lifeblood, its biggest employer and claim to fame. Keeping the government secret was seen as part of keeping the town safe and prosperous too. And so, under this cone of silence, Project Greek Island moved forward. By 1962, the Grand Resort had a colossal nuclear shelter hidden beneath it, ready for a day everyone hoped would never come. So how do you hide a vast nuclear bunker beneath a bustling luxury hotel without anyone catching on? Well, the answer? With meticulous planning and a whole lot of camouflage. The construction of the Greenbrier's underground layer was an engineering marvel that was cloaked in subterfuge. Builders used a cut and cover method, essentially excavating a gigantic pit in the mountainside and then covering it back up once the bunker structure was in place. From the outside, nothing looked too unusual after construction. The new West Virginia wing of the hotel rose above, offering modern conference rooms and amenities to guests. To any casual observer, it was just another expansion of the resort's opulence. But Hidden in plain sight directly below was a reinforced concrete behemoth ready to house Congress. Every trick in the book was used to disguise the bunker's creation, and all that rock and dirt that was dug out, well, it had to go somewhere. They quietly hauled away tons of earth and they repurposed it around the area. Some of it was spread to expand the Greenbrier's golf course, subtly reshaping the landscape with the bunker's leftovers. Some of it was even used to lengthen the runway at the local airport. That's right, the town got an upgraded airport runway courtesy of the bunker's excavation debris. These moves served a doable purpose, disposing of evidence while also improving facilities that were local, which gave residents fewer reasons to question the massive construction effort. Then there were details like entrances and staffing. The secret bunker wasn't just a big hole in the ground. It had to remain functional and ready at a moment's notice for decades. To manage that, a cover story was essential. Enter Forsyth Associates, a dummy corporation concocted by the government. On paper, Forsyth Associates was an audio-visual equipment company hired to handle the Greenbrier's conference technology and the hotel's 1,100 television sets. But in reality, the men and women from Forsyth were actually just government technicians and engineers. Their real job was to keep the bunker operational 24/7. They maintained the generators, they refreshed supplies, they tested communications equipment, whatever it took to ensure that if the doomsday came, the shelter would be fully functional. These employees walked the halls of the resort openly, carrying toolboxes or coils of cable, blending in as just another part of the hotel staff. But little did most of their coworkers know that this small team was living a double life, with one foot in the world of hospitality and the other in a top-secret military-grade bunker. The entrances to the bunker were master classes in concealment. There were at least 4 hidden access points, all tucked behind false walls or heavy doors masquerading as ordinary parts of the hotel. One famous example, an exhibition hall of the Greenbrier, there was a door that was papered over with the same floral wallpaper as the rest of the room. It looked like just another section of wall. No knob, no sign, nothing to suggest that it was actually a gateway to a secret. But if you knew the trick, that wall swung open to reveal a gigantic 25-ton steel blast door looming behind it. That blast door and others like it were nearly 20 inches thick. When closed, they sealed the bunker off behind layers of lead-lined concrete, each wall about 2 feet thick. These doors and walls were built to withstand a nuclear strike nearby. The bunker could endure the shock of a blast and protect those inside from radiation and blast waves. It was like having a fortress buried under a 5-star hotel, complete with doors that could shrug off an explosion. Inside this hidden complex, everything was designed for self-sufficiency. Think of it as an underground mini-city. There was a power plant with backup generators and vast fuel tanks to keep the lights on and the air filtered. Huge water reserves were filled and ready so hundreds of people could drink, cook, and even sparingly shower without any outside water supply. The air filtration system was state-of-the-art, capable of scrubbing radioactive fallout or chemical agents from the incoming air. At each entrance, decontamination showers were installed. If congressmen arrived covered in radioactive dust, they could be washed off before fully entering the living areas. Every detail served one goal: to let life continue for the government deep underground, even if the outside world was burning. Amazingly, once construction finished, the Greenbrier bunker was not a dormant cave waiting for use. It was fully active around the clock for nearly 30 years. From 1962 until the early 1990s, this facility was kept ready for instant occupancy. Supplies were updated regularly and maintenance was consistent. Trucks would discreetly arrive at night to deliver fresh provisions or quietly swap out aging stock. Year after year, while tourists danced in the bar ballroom above, a skeleton crew below made sure that the bunker never fell into disrepair. And through all of those years, the secret held, even during national crises like the Cuban Missile Crisis or later Cold War scares, this underground refuge was never revealed or used. It remained a hidden insurance policy, a silent guardian under the mountain. In effect, the Greenbrier bunker became a Cold War time capsule, fully equipped, fully staffed, and mercifully never needed. Now that we know how the bunker was built and kept secret, let's step inside and see what Congress's emergency shelter actually contained. Imagine walking through one of those blast doors as it swings open. What would you find in this subterranean world prepared for the nation's lawmakers? The first thing to grasp is the sheer scale of it all. This was not a little basement safe room. This was a sprawling 112,000 square foot complex, roughly the size of 2 football fields laid end to end, and it had to be that big because it was designed to hold an enormous number of people. In total, the bunker could shelter about 1,100 individuals. That included all 535 members of Congress, plus a few hundred key staffers and support personnel. Essentially, every U.S. senator and representative would have a bunk assigned in this shelter, along with one aide each to assist them. However, here's a sobering detail. There was no space for anyone's spouses, children, or families. The evacuation plan explicitly saved Congress and a handful of aides, nobody else. It would have been a rescue of the government, not the families of the government. That grim reality hung over the whole concept of the bunker. Walking down the dormitory halls, you'd see row after row of simple metal bunk beds. There were 18 dorm rooms to house all of the lawmakers and staff, and these weren't comfortable hotel suites by any stretch of the imagination. They were Spartan barrack-style quarters. Bunk beds were stacked 3 high to maximize space. Pillows, blankets, and small locker for each person were provided, but privacy was non-existent. It was a far cry from the cushy life that many congressmen knew at the Capitol. The contrast between the Greenbrier's lush guest rooms upstairs and the bare-bones bunks downstairs would have been jarring, to say the least. Even though the accommodations were scarce, the bunker was equipped to keep its inhabitants alive and functioning for months on end. There was a cafeteria that could feed about 400 people at a time in shifts, with an adjacent industrial-sized kitchen. The pantry held roughly a 6-month supply of food, and bunker staff regularly rotated the stock to ensure that it stayed fresh. Shelves were filled with canned goods, dried foods, and other non-perishables, and huge storage tanks held enough water to last the entire population for that duration. Every necessity was anticipated. Medical supplies were on hand, and there was even a small clinic with a modest operating room for emergencies. In a rather macabre touch, the bunker had a pathological waste incinerator. Essentially, it was a crematorium to dispose of any bodies if people didn't survive the full stay. It's grim, but it shows the planners truly tried to think of everything, however unpleasant. Surviving is one thing. Governing is another. The Greenbrier bunker was outfitted not just to keep people alive, but to let Congress continue working. To that end, the facility included chambers to replace Capitol Hill. 2 large auditoriums were built to serve as the House and Senate chambers. The larger one could seat around 440 people, enough for all members of the House, with some staff, and the smaller one with about 130 for the Senate. These rooms weren't ornate like the real Capitol chambers. They were fairly plain and utilitarian, but they had stages at the front, rows of chairs, and desks with microphones. The idea was that Congress could convene underground, debate bills, and keep the government running, even if war raged overhead. For occasions when both houses needed to meet together, an expansive exhibit hall in the bunker could be quickly converted into a joint session space big enough for all 535 lawmakers. One can imagine an emergency State of the Union being delivered in a concrete hall beneath the resort, with an audience of officials seated on folding chairs in a bunker ballroom. Communication with the outside world was crucial as well. The bunker featured a fully functional broadcast studio for television and radio addresses. Congress or the president, if he ever came, could use it to speak to the American people. To make it look as if these broadcasts were coming from a normal location, the studio was equipped with scenic backdrops of Washington, D.C., giving the illusion that leaders were still above ground in the Capitol. Meanwhile, a 100-foot radio antenna was hidden on a nearby mountain, wired to the bunker's communication center. This antenna could beam out radio signals across the country, serving as the bunker's own broadcast towers to reach survivors. All of this was much about psychology as practicality. The idea was to reassure the public that the government was intact and functioning, even if Washington itself was in ruins. In essence, the bunker's communications would let officials declare that we're still here and that we're going to pull through this, at a time when people would desperately need to hear it. As it turned out, none of these elaborate facilities were ever used in an actual emergency. History never called for Congress to disappear into this hideaway. Not even during the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis, the closest that the world came to nuclear war, was there an evacuation to the Greenbrier. Many lawmakers through the years didn't even know that the bunker existed. Those who did know often quietly doubted the plan. House Speaker Tip O'Neill years later said that he never put much credence in it, finding the whole idea a bit far-fetched, and others admitted that they would have balked at the notion of saving themselves while leaving their families behind. It was a moral quandary that made the plan hard to swallow. In the end, the Greenbrier bunker became a contingency that was never called upon. The $100 million insurance policy thankfully never had to pay out. It stood silently for decades, a Cold War relic of immense preparation for an apocalypse that mercifully never came. The Greenbrier bunker remained an unseen sentinel well into the late 20th century. In fact, it outlasted the Soviet Union itself in secrecy. It wasn't a nuclear attack that blew the bunker's cover, but investigative journalism. In May of 1992, reporter Ted Gupp published a bombshell expose in the Washington Post titled "The Ultimate Congressional Hideaway." Gupp had received an anonymous tip and painstakingly pieced together the story. When his article hit the presses, the decades-old secret was out. The Greenbrier Resort had been hiding a gigantic congressional fallout shelter beneath its grounds. After 34 years of silent readiness, Project Greek Island was front-page news. The government's response was swift. Virtually the moment that the story broke, the bunker was declared decommissioned as an emergency facility. Once its location was public, it was no longer viable as a secret hideaway. Congressional leaders issued a statement expressing regret that the secret had been revealed, noting that the disclosure had effectively killed the program's usefulness. In essence, as soon as people knew about the bunker, it lost its power. Secrecy was the entire point, and now that was gone. In White Sulphur Springs, the locals who had guarded this secret for so long had conflicted feelings. Many were proud of their role in this grand secret and were stunned to see that it was splashed across national headlines. Some were downright angry at Gupp and the Washington Post for revealing what they saw as their secret. It felt like a betrayal by an outsider. They had kept quiet out of duty and loyalty, and now the whole world knew. At the same time, others acknowledged that the Cold War was over and perhaps it was time to let go of this relic. Interestingly, the unnamed government source who leaked the story was reportedly motivated by a belief that it was wasteful to keep funding the bunker into the 1990s. In the end, the Greenbrier bunker might have simply been a project whose time had passed, exposed not by malice, but by a march of history. With the secret out in the open, the Greenbrier Resort faced a new question: what to do with the former top-secret bunker under the hotel? Well, the answer was to pull back the curtain entirely, and by 1995, the resort began offering guided tours of the facility. The once restricted blast doors were opened for paying visitors who could now stroll through the same chambers that were meant to shelter lawmakers. Much of the original equipment and furniture had been removed when the bunker was decommissioned, but it has since been refurnished or recreated to resemble its Cold War appearance. Tour groups see the dormitories with bunk beds, the auditorium that would have been the house chamber, the old communication center, all of the eerie trappings of apocalypse planning. No photography is allowed inside, a rule that hints the bunker hasn't entirely shed its mystique, but anyone can buy a ticket to see firsthand what was once among America's most closely held secrets. It's a curious fate for the bunker. Built for the end of the world, now it's a tourist attraction, and it's a piece of living history. For a time, part of the bunker even found a second life as a secure data storage center for private companies, a practical use for an impregnable underground space. Of course, even now, the Greenbrier bunker's mystique continues to spark questions. Tour guides say that one of the most common things visitors ask is there something more? Another hidden room or another secret bunker deeper down? Well, it's hard to blame people for wondering. After all, if this huge complex could be kept secret for so long, who's to say there isn't more that we don't know about? Well, officially the answer is that everything has been revealed and that there is no further secrets lurking under the resort. But the fact that the question gets asked shows how the story feeds the imagination. If one elaborate government hideout could hide in plain sight, perhaps there are others elsewhere. In fact, the Greenbrier revelation has fueled broader conspiracy theories about government bunkers just in general. Some people reason that if Congress had a secret shelter, maybe the powerful have other safe havens stockpiled for catastrophes. One particularly far-reaching theory comes from Catherine Austin Fitts, a former HUD official who claims that trillions of missing federal dollars have funded a vast network of underground facilities for government elites. She alleges there might have been over 100 such bunkers, linked by high-speed tunnels, essentially forming a hidden subterranean infrastructure, ready to whisk VIPs to safety. These allegations go into extreme territory, incorporating ideas of advanced technologies and secret programs, and there's no solid evidence to support them. Yet they show how the existence of the Greenbrier bunker leads to shreds of credibility to fantastical ideas. Once a real secret bunker is exposed, it's easy for imaginations to run wild about what else the government might be hiding. Stepping back into reality, the U.S. government did build several other bunkers during the Cold War, but all known ones have been similarly revealed over time. For instance, the Cheyenne Mountain Complex in Colorado, the famous NORAD headquarters inside of a mountain, is real, and so is Raven Rock in Pennsylvania. It's often called the Underground Pentagon, and Mount Weather in Virginia, which is an emergency center for government continuity. Now, these facilities underscore continuity of government planning was very real and very extensive. However, the more extravagant notion of hundreds of secret bases and trillions in black budget funds doesn't have proof behind it. If anything, the saga of the Greenbrier bunker reminds us that even colossal secrets can be kept for a time, but they eventually come to light. And when they do, they become part of the historical record rather than ongoing mystery. Ultimately, the Greenbrier bunker stands as a remarkable artifact of the Cold War. It encapsulates an era's anxiety and extraordinary measures. There's a cinematic quality to this story, a mashup of high society luxury and doomsday dread. It's like two worlds coexisting in one spot, champagne and ballroom galas above, concrete walls and gas masks below, separated by only just a few feet of earth in a veil of secrecy. For over 30 years, tourists and lawmakers reveled in opulence at the Greenbrier, utterly unaware that directly beneath their feet lay a fortress built for the end of the world. Each twist in this saga, from the bunker's covert construction to its sensational unveiling, cements its place in American lore. Today, when visitors step through those heavy glass doors on a tour, they quite literally walk into history. The tale of the Greenbrier bunker leaves us marveling at the lengths our leaders once went to prepare for its catastrophe. It also makes us wonder, even a little bit, about what other secrets might still lie hidden out there. In the end, the Greenbrier bunker remains the ultimate deep vault of secrets buried beneath the green hills of West Virginia. And just so you know, you can take a visit yourself, because I'm a travel advisor, history nerd, and mystery chaser, and I'm here to take you to the places that you didn't even know existed.